No matter where you look throughout society, the impacts of social welfare and social workers are everywhere in America. Chances are either you or someone you know has interacted with social workers. As a social work major, I have a particular interest in social welfare and social work policies throughout American history. Let's start with Jane Addams in The Hull House. This is a quote by Jane Addams. The good we secure for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it's secure for all of us and incorporated into our common life. She is the matriarch of all of social work. She basically started the profession of social work. She had a program called the Hull House in Chicago, and it took people, mostly older women who couldn't work anymore, and took them in to the house so they wouldn't be homeless. They taught them how to sew. They would teach them how to do all sorts of things. Jane Addams wasn't only that, but she was also a social activist. She worked to get the women right to vote, and the 19th Amendment passed. She worked on a bunch of different charities in Chicago, and she is basically the founder of all social welfare in the United States. According to Johnson, the social work profession is a legacy of Jane Addams. We trace our roots to her. The work Jane Addams and others like her started in the early settlement houses became mainstream during the 1960s and found its place in the curriculum of schools of social work. Most of her teaching was so far ahead of its time, we didn't really start using her model until the 1960s. Her Hull House was very influential because it was the first of its kind, and it was a very remarkable thing. Now let's jump forward to FDR and the New Deal. America in the 1930s was a very uncertain place because in 1929 and 1930 the stock market crashed and left dozens of people without jobs, without homes, without money, without places to work. It was really just awful, and no one really knew how to do it. How to fix this problem. Herbert Hoover said that individualism would be the way to fix all these problems, but in reality, individualism wasn't going to fix a society-wide problem. That's why when FDR came around, he proposed the New Deal. And what the New Deal did is set a brand new department called the Department of Labor that was headed up by a person who would oversee all the departments of labor. So there would be the departments of work programs, the department of housing. Housing and urban development is a part of the Department of Labor at this time. There was the Department of Fair Housing. There was the Department of Social Welfare. There was also a new brand of public servants called social workers who would work to make sure people got food on a national scale. Kennedy states that the Social Security Act of 1935, a measure of security, was FDR's gift to millions of Americans. The Social Security Act, what it did was secure a future for all Americans, so that way when they retired, they would have money to fall back on. And FDR did this through a loophole in the American tax code, and what he did was he made sure that people were paying in through a nationwide income tax, paying into this program so that way in the future they could retire and live comfortable lives at around 65. Medicaid and Medicare also started becoming a major deal for Americans at this time through FDR. FDR was a huge catalyst in what becomes known as the modern American welfare system. He's really what did everything for social workers. This is where the modern social work movement started, with breadlines and the American workers' unions, and also for Social Security. The Social Security Office was the largest reaching social welfare program in the history of the world at the time, and it also is the most popular program for social welfare in the world, even up to this point in time. He really took this whole problem and made it into a single issue and attacked that issue through social workers. Now, lastly, let's look at modern social welfare and social institutions. The United States Department of Labor is now a modern institution located in Washington, D.C. It is its own department now, that is run by the federal government. They are a huge component of social welfare during this period in time, now, currently. Most of it, social programs are run state by state now with the guidance of the federal government. For example, WIC, Housing and Urban Development, also run things on a state-by-state basis or even a federal level. The TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, is for families who don't have a father or mother and they need assistance with raising their kids, so they're given money to help do that. Social Security is still a big thing. And a study done by the Social Welfare Library says the public housing program, dating back to the New Deal era, FDR and the New Deal, provides federal subsidies for construction costs on housing units built by local public housing authorities. These local housing authorities subsequently own and operate the units. So social welfare policy has really moved away from, in America at least, from government operated things, and it's more like giving money to private entities to do the social welfare. For example, in Texas, WIC is operated by the government, but the people who provide these services are generally local grocery stores and local facilities and local people. So welfare in the modern era has shifted away from big government stuff to small government stuff. Modern welfare is still basically the same as what FDR did with the New Deal and everything he did with nationwide government. It's just been shrunk down a lot because of a lot of pushback throughout time from different people and different parties and whatnot. So I hope you enjoyed this romp through the history of social work. I took you through the history of social work from Jane Addams and the Whole House to FDR and the New Deal to the modern social welfare movement in America. I hope when you look around and see all the social welfare in your life, you can see how it's touched the people around you, and everything that has to do with society related touches everybody.